Hello and welcome to the Paris Fintech Forum Communities Programme. I'm Elliot Gotkin, I'm a journalist and, with Laurent Nisri, co-host of this exclusive video interview series produced with the support of Solaris Bank, Rise and BPI France. Now, as fintechs have seemingly been on their unstoppable march, traditional banks haven't been taking things lying down, developing new products and occasionally buying fintechs. One of these is France's SocGen. The lender's Chief Innovation Officer is Claire Calmejane, who joins me now. Great to see you, Claire.
Hi, Elliot.
Now, we talk a lot about the scale, traction and valuation of fintech, so perhaps it would be useful to kick off with your giving us perhaps a sense of the scale of SocGen itself.
Sure. SocGen is in the type of the super big. So we operate worldwide in 62 countries. We have about 133,000 colleagues across the world. And we have three main areas of businesses, about 7 retail banks and consumer credit and private banks. A second area around obviously capital markets, which is one of the areas where we are leader, as well as global transaction banking, payment services and financing. And the last one is around specialized service. And SocGen have a huge footprint in car leasing on B2B and B2C.
Okay, and COVID, of course, seems to have acted as a kind of catalyst for many of the trends we were already seeing in banking and finance. How has SocGen changed these past 12 to 18 months?
I think SocGen have changed drastically in terms of new ways of working and more inclusion. And also, obviously, at the heart of the pandemic, our priority was really to have our colleagues safe and to ensure that everyone could be okay across the world and have the right condition of work whilst serving our clients. And we're very proud that all the bank activities have been running 100%. So 2 weeks into the crisis in France, we've transferred about 50,000 people, which were able to work remotely, even in activities such as capital markets, working from home, as well as in the networks and in all our activities. In terms of consumer usage, if we look at our retail banks, actually, I often say it, Elliot, but we didn't see a massive change in the strategy in terms of the retail banks. The reality is that, we had already a good level of digital adoption and servicing with 60% of our 23 million clients worldwide already using digital very actively, doing payments and, day-to-day transaction at 98% online. And through sales and acquisition, we've seen an acceleration, but this was already in trend in our strategy. I think where we are seeing maybe some different trends are definitely in the private bank, as most of the business, were involving e-signature, but also remote advisory. And we are seeing more appetite of this segment, which traditionally really enjoy a face-to-face meeting or, human relationship. And I think, it's a segment where you will probably still expect, your banker to be present in your day-to-day activities. And obviously, in large corporate, there was already a trend of digitalization there for a long time. But in SME segment, we've really seen, and professional, we are already seeing now digital transformation entering their day-to-day usage, especially as they have been, to some extent forced to develop e-commerce platform to be able to operate.
Okay, and among your other responsibilities, you manage SocGen's, I think it's €150 million fintech venture fund. Can you tell us briefly perhaps some of the fintechs you've created or invested in and what areas you find especially attractive right now?
Sure. Actually, we invested 200 million so far, Elliot, in SG Venture, through SG Venture, with strong acceleration outside of major acquisition. And last year, we acquired two new startups. One was Shine, a freelancer bank, SME freelancer bank. Another one was Rizocar, which is an e-commerce platform to sell used car, but to repackage it and to really give them to you key in hand through a digital first experience. And the years before, we had acquired Trezor, which is a bank as a service platform, and Fiduceo, as well as Lumo, which is a crowdfunding in renewable energy. And we also created new startups, as you mentioned. So we had about 3 years ago a large entrepreneurship program which created 60 ideas within the bank, and today 7 of them are actually created through SG Venture with a real company. And one of the leading one is SocieteGenerale Forge, which is a leading security token platform in digital assets, which was there during the digital asset track of Paris Fintech Forum. For us, what's really important is we can see, and you referred to it as the valuation on the market. It's part of our innovation strategy to diversify the portfolio business mix of SocieteGenerale. We've been able in the past to really succeed to scale this business model. So if you look at two ones that are a little bit more mature in the SocieteGenerale group portfolio, you have Boursorama, which is a leading French online bank. So Boursorama have today about 3 million clients, and it's going to profitability in 2023 and 5 million clients in 2025, which will position it as one of the leading banks in France, but also in Europe for online banking with very high satisfaction rates. And the other one is ALD, which is a B2B car leasing franchise, which have published their new strategy around mobility as a service. It's the first leader in Europe and the second one in the world. And obviously, mobility as a service is fastly growing with diversified innovation that is there. And what we want to do with the one that I've mentioned in the SG Venture Fund is obviously to replicate, scale. And we know that some will succeed, some will also face different challenges, but that's just the life.
Sure. And you personally, Claire, you're a software engineer by training, I think. How did you find yourself in the C-suite of a big French bank? Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your journey.
Thank you, Elliot. Yes. How did I ended up in the C-suite of SocGen? I think it was not a plan, to be honest. I've been lucky. I grew up in France. I was an IT engineer, spent 7 years in consulting, did 1 year at MIT to research digital transformation at a time that digital transformation didn't exist. It was only 10 years ago now, but you will not believe, we were in the midst of deployment of mobile, in big companies. Not everyone had a smartphone, not everyone had a computer in the C-suite. It was a very different world, and what a journey it has been in 10 years. So then I went in London, which was the capital of Fintech, and 3 years back, I took this job at SocGen. But I think, one of the two differentiators of my skill set was, a deep understanding of the technology and the ability to translate it into a new consumer usage, a new business model, and to decrypt this new business model for the C-suite to really explain, what generate the value, how they are scalable. And maybe the other one is my network, which I've built, over a global network over countries over the past 15 years, which, nurture the comprehension of the trends and the projection of what could be financial services, because I think it's very hard to interview. Even if you were to interview 1,000 people, Elliot, I think you will have 1,000 different answers. But what is sure today is the industry need to have the running shoes. It's what you were mentioning at the beginning. We need to be ready to change in front of new entrants and in front of new consumer usage.
Okay, and I assume it wasn't. It sounds all very smooth and plain sailing, but presumably there were some challenges that you encountered along the way. Perhaps you can share with some of your experiences in that respect?
Sure, a lot of challenges. I think, the first one, which have always struck me, is this industry have not been transforming with technology for, the first, technology was built in banks in the 1970s. There were before computers, but the new generation of computers, generation one was 1970s. Yet the business have still anchored and promoted leaders, which were experts in finance and risk, which are really the heart of what we do. Because, at the end, a bank is about, people like you and me, putting their savings in the bank and making sure it's safe and be able to plan their financial life in the real economy. And yet, in the senior leadership, the comprehension of technology and the even, from a regulatory point of view, the need to appoint, people that have this technology expertise was very low. It's progressively changing, but that have really struck me because, people were like, it's more important for you to have a risk background actually than to have a technology background. But, some of our business, as I mentioned, are, today really technology. Boursorama is a pure online bank. So that's one big challenge. I think the second one, Elliot, we often talk about it, but obviously there is not a lot of women, neither in technology, neither in financial services. But I will say this one progressively have become a major differentiator. Where it could be daunting, to be in meetings where you are the only woman and the only woman in the room, and to voice, your opinion, and to assume, your leadership traits, which could be very different from the people you have in front of you. But I think staying myself, I've made, who I am, and definitely was the opportunity to be in a C-suite position.
Great. Well, it's good to it's good to see you blazing a trail there, Claire. But look, don't go away right now because we're going to take a very quick break, after which we're going to continue our conversation with SocGen Chief Innovation Officer, Claire Calmejane. Welcome back, and don't forget, if you're not already a full member of our community, everything you need to join can be found at www.parisfintechforum.com. Now, Claire, I've got a few more questions for you about the kind of finance and technology and fintech ecosystem in general. Just an easy one to kick off with. I mean, when you see neobanks like Revolut being valued more highly than some of Europe's biggest and most profitable banks, do you despair, or do you just kind of content yourself that the world's gone mad? What do you make of it?
I think for me, Elliot, I've always perceived fintech as setting a higher bar in terms of customer experience, and always seen that as a good thing for banks to change and to evolve. Not that they were not doing it, but really to pass a different threshold. It's interesting to see fintechs like Revolut or Klarna. Obviously, we have to understand that their valorization sometimes is 30 times to 38 times the revenue of the past year, which is very different than the case of SocieteGenerale, which obviously is traded and accessible for everyone in that want to buy some shares and have a different type of asset under the management, as well as a business model over it. But there is things we should learn from these new entrants. The first one is, why are they so high valued? Is because there is a belief, they can operate with new technology platform, a very low cost, operate globally, as Revolut have done, in less than 10 years. They are today, the saying SocGen is in 62 countries. I will not be surprised that the number of countries where Revolut is probably quite similar, but the cost of operation is mostly relying on their technology and passporting, a license where they can, and supporting in different fintechs where SocieteGenerale was not built this way. And that part of the change, we are always looking at to operate with, I'm sure we'll talk about that, but we have a very strong focus on AI and data transformation today in financial services to reach a type of similar areas. So we should look at, their cost of operation and the customer experience, the wow effect they can offer, which is also found in Amazon or Airbnb. I think the strengths of traditional banks are obviously, we have large customer base, which are there, which are historic. We have a relationship of trust with these clients for more than 150 years, and we have no intention to break this trust. And we invest a lot in cybersecurity, in the way the data of the customer is managed properly, appropriately, choosing a provider this way, but maintaining a high level of innovation. The second advantage, obviously, is operating with regulation is something that we have been doing for years and years, 150 years now, and optimizing for that all the time. And the last one is obviously our expertise. You will find some of the most experts, SocGen for the last 115 years have been pioneers in soft business. I've been able to rely on very strong expertise. You will find people that have worked at SocieteGenerale for 30, 35 years that are deep experts of financial services to operate this business.
You mentioned, Claire, and we haven't got a huge amount of time, but you mentioned AI and the use of data and how this is all kind of playing into this digital transformation that we're seeing. I mean, is that a way perhaps to kind of level the playing field between traditional players and the new kids on the block? I mean, how is this going to play out and who's going to end up as winners?
Yes, interesting question. Who are they going to end up as winners? But definitely, I think the ones that will win are the ones that really think their organization differently, that prepare some of their business line, especially in the heart of the enterprise of the bank, around risk, compliance, financial services, to train part of their workforce to use low-code, no-code type of approaches and to streamline front to back the processes using AI and data. So just to give you a couple of examples that we have already in SocGen, we are using AI for fraud management, which is quite efficient in terms of payment and preventing payments. We are using AI for KYC and authorization to recognize who you are and to be able to cross-sell it, to cross-check it across the different areas of business. And obviously, I was talking about cross-sell. We do use it also in digital marketing and in conversational banking to move from transaction to conversation.
Okay, very spot on with your timing there as well, Claire, because we have unfortunately run out of time, but really want to thank you so much for taking the time to join us. That was SocGen Chief Innovation Officer, Claire Calmejane. Thank you.
Thank you, Elliot. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, but I've just got to say a couple more words, which is that I'm going to be back again next week with another big name from the world of finance and technology. So we hope that everyone watching will be able to join us again then. In the meantime, you can keep up to date with all the exclusive interviews and content from the Paris Fintech Forum Communities Programme via www.parisfintechforum.com. That's it from me. Hope to see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.